GoForThe2.com. This is our Week 8 matchup of a great game in the SEC. The SEC will take front and center stage this weekend with 3 great games. We're going to give them to you. We're going to kick it off right now with top-ranked Alabama traveling to Knoxville, Tennessee to take on their rival, the Tennessee Volunteers, and much-maligned head coach Derek Dooley. We'll break down both sides of the ball for each team, and we're going to give you a prediction as well in this game. So stay with us at GoForThe2.com. What can you say about this matchup? But it's been owned by the Crimson Tide over the last 5 years. They're 5-0 in the series. They're sitting at number 1 in the country, 6-0. They're 3-0 in the SEC, and they're coming off a very dominating road performance against Missouri. They beat up on Missouri in Columbia 42-10. Nick Saban has his team hitting on all cylinders, both offensively and defensively, and they have a tough 3-game road stretch ahead of them. They face Tennessee this week. The following week on the 27th, they face an undefeated Mississippi State team in Tuscaloosa, and then everybody's looking at that November 3rd matchup with 5-1 LSU. So this is a key 3-game stretch. If you're a Crimson Tide fan, you have to win these 3 games if you want to get back to the national championship and win your second national championship in a row. Their head coach, Nick Saban's the best game planner in the country. He does not take any opponent lightly. He has his teams ready. They're disciplined. They create turnovers, and they do not turn the ball over. And they're led by their junior quarterback, A.J. McCarron. McCarron, at this point, in my estimation, has to be considered for the Heisman Trophy. I talked about it in my Week 7 recap. He's having a very good season. He's hitting 89 of 132 passes for 67%. He's thrown for 12 touchdowns and no interceptions, and more importantly, he's the leader of that offense. He's shown poise, he's shown leadership, and he reminds me of former Alabama quarterback Jay Barker. A.J. McCarron's only lost 1 game as a starter. Barker only lost 2 in his career, and he's heading in that direction, and he's got a tough 3-game road trip, but a 3-game trip for Alabama. But A.J. McCarron's the reason why that offense gels and why they put up points week in and week out. A cause of concern for the Crimson Tide this week was A.J. McCarron did hurt his knee against Missouri. He returned. He's expected to start against Tennessee, but there's no word on how bad he injured that right knee, and that's a cause of concern heading into this matchup with Tennessee. The offensive line had another dominating performance against Missouri. Barrett Jones and Chance Warmack opened up the holes for Eddie Lacy and T.J. Yeldon. Lacy finished with 177 yards, and they were running at will against Missouri. Expect the same type of approach from the Crimson Tide this week with a Volunteer defense that's giving up 178 yards rushing per game. They're also yielding 31.8 points per game. That's 93rd in the nation, and I think that Nick Saban will rely on his offensive line and look to wear down the Volunteers with a very vanilla type of game plan. I think there's some cause of concern heading into this 3-game stretch for Nick Saban. Clearly, they are the superior team, but the inexperience at the quarterback position for Alabama is a cause of concern. I'll tell you why. A.J. McCarron's been sacked 12 times to date. He did get hurt last week and did return, but the 2 backup quarterbacks, Philip Eli and Blake Sims, are underclassmen with a lack of game experience. The former backup quarterback, Philip Sims, transferred. He did have good game experience. They do not have that option this year, and they are very thin at the quarterback position. So heading into this tough 3-game matchup, I think that you're going to see Nick Saban take a sort of conservative approach against the Volunteers. I'm not saying he's going to hold back totally, but I just don't think he's going to allow A.J. McCarron to get hit a lot. He's been hit a number of times and sacked 12 times on the year, and in order to beat LSU on November 3rd and the Mississippi State game on October 27th, they're going to need a healthy A.J. McCarron. Defensively for Alabama, what can you say? They're yielding 7.5 points per game. That's number 1 in the country. They have the top-ranked defense. They have the top-ranked rushing defense. They cause turnovers, and they force teams out of their game plan. Look for them to pressure quarterback Tyler Bray. Tyler Bray's thrown 7 interceptions on the year. All 7 interceptions have come within the last 4 games. So Bray has made some bad decisions over the last 3 games, and that's a cause of concern for the Volunteers heading into this game against top-ranked Alabama. Look for Nick Saban to use his defense. He relies on it for field position. He relies on them to turn the game around on turnovers and physicality, and look for the same type of approach out of the Crimson Tide this weekend. For Tennessee, what can you say? But this, in my estimation, this game against Alabama is their season in a nutshell. They're 0-3 in the SEC, and Derek Dooley has not beaten a top 25 team in his tenure at Tennessee. His seat is so hot, he can't sit down, and he's going to need a gutty performance. He's going to need to throw caution to the wind, and he's going to have to pull out all the stops to beat Alabama and save his job, in my estimation. Tyler Bray's having a very good season. He's hitting 60% of his passes with 16 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, but he's made some poor decisions against Georgia, and he made some poor decisions last week against Mississippi State. They're coming off a 41-31 loss in Starkville to an undefeated Mississippi State team. They come back home against their rival, and they need this is a must-win for the Volunteers. In order to beat Alabama this weekend, Tennessee's going to need Rajon Neal and Marlon Lane to run the football. A good thing for Tennessee is that they're averaging 38 points per game. That's good for 24th in the country. So they do have weapons. They have Justin Hunter and Whiteout Patterson, and Derek Dooley needs to find ways to get his playmakers the ball. I think that if you're a Volunteer fan and Derek Dooley, you have to break some tendency in this game. Don't look to run the football early. Look to maybe use an up-tempo attack to try and wear down Alabama's front 7 and maybe get some big plays on that Alabama defense. It's going to be a very tough task. Alabama clearly is the superior team, and they're going to need to break tendencies offensively in order to score points on Alabama, but I think that they do have weapons to at least be in the ball game to some extent should Derek Dooley break his game plan and not be conservative in this game. When you look at the defense for Tennessee, they do have cause of concern. They're yielding 178 yards per game rushing. They're giving up 31.8 points per game, 93rd in the nation in terms of scoring defense, and that's a cause of concern with that big offensive line in Alabama. Barrett Jones, Chance Warmack, they wear you down and they open up holes, and he has a staple of backs that can move the football on Tennessee. So that's a cause of concern for Tennessee. When you look at the Volunteers, they have not been the same since defensive coordinator John Chavis left for LSU. It's been a long time. They were tops in the SEC for years, and it's been a long time since Chavis left and Tennessee's defense performed. They're not an SEC caliber defense. They did have an injury in their secondary to Brian Randolph, who was hurt during the Florida game, and that has hurt their secondary, and they've forced to use a lot of different players, but the physicality on defense has not been there. But they're going to have to bring it this weekend against Alabama. In my estimation, when you break this game down, I think that this game is going to be a close game because I think Alabama and Nick Saban will use a vanilla type of game plan, a conservative type of approach. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people expect. I don't see Alabama dominating this game for a couple of reasons. I think they want to protect A.J. McCarron for the Mississippi State game, for the LSU game. I look for a very conservative approach by Nick Saban. You look for a run-oriented approach by the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think that will allow Tennessee to hang around, and I'm calling for a 10-point Alabama victory on the road in Knoxville to prepare for those two games against Mississippi State and LSU. So I think Alabama wins, but it's a little bit closer. I think Alabama picks up a 17-7 victory on the road in Knoxville. We're going to break down the rest of the week in the SEC, so stay with us at GoForThe2.com.